Hello everybody and welcome to another video. Another video about the history of old First Division teams. In this video I'm going to look at the history of Manchester City, who were the most dominant team in the 1960s. Manchester City were relegated from the old First Division in the 62-63 season. And after that, in 1965, came the arrival of one of their greatest managers, Joe Mercer, and his assistant manager, Malcolm Allison. When these two arrived Manchester City at the time, City were rock bottom. When they arrived, they turned things around. And in the summer of 1965, they bought Mike Summerbee and Colin Bell. And that's when Manchester City became one of the better old First Division teams in the 60s. And of course, after that, other players followed. You had Francis Lee. Now, he was a fiery character. He was Francis Lee. And City had other great players as well as Mike Summerbee and Colin Bell. They had Neil Young. He was a underrated player, but he was a gifted player. And other players and they had goalkeeper Joe Corrigan. And then everything when they arrived, and Joe Mercer and Malcolm Allison was there, everything into place. It was the 1967-68 season when City won their first old First Division title. They finished above their local rivals, Manchester United. And I remember Manchester City playing my team, West Bromwich Albion. Every time City and Albion met, City always seemed to give Albion a good hiding. When Albion won the cup in '68 and City won the league the same year, they faced one another in the Charity Shield. At that time, the Charity Shield wasn't played at Wembley. This one was played at Manchester City, and Manchester City beat Albion 6-1. And during the course of that season, the 68-69 season, Albion played City again in the league, and City beat Albion 5-1. Every time, like I've said, every time City played Albion, they always used to give Albion a good thumping. They always used to beat Albion by a big scoreline. And after they won the old First Division title, they won the 1969 FA Cup, beating Leicester 1-0. Neil Young, he scored the only goal. And in the following year, they played in the league final, they played Albion again. And again, they beat us 2-1. That was after extra time. The goal scorers that day for Albion was Hefastel. I believe he scored in the 5th minute. We scored too early, and then City equalised through Francis Lee, and their winner came from Glenn Pardo. And then Manchester City then won the old European Winners' Cup the following year in the 70-71 season. Uh, in the start of the 70s, success for Manchester City was a bit low. They they were a team that with the players they've got, they should have won more trophies. Well, they would have should have won the old first division trophy more often with the players they got, the likes of Summerby, Bell, and Francis Lee. They should have won it more. They got players and they got the quality to win it, but they didn't. For City that decade, success was hard to come by. And in 1974, they was at Wembley again in the league final when they played Wolves. And of course, Wolves beat them 2-1. And it was 2 years later when City were back at Wembley again. They won it. They won the League Cup this time. They beat Newcastle 2-1. By that time, the partnership of Mercer and Malcolm Allison was, I think, becoming strained, and I think Joe Mercer retired, and Malcolm Allison, I think he was manager for Manchester City for a while, but then he left to go and manage Crystal Palace, and I believe he came back again towards the end of the 70s when he signed Steve Daly from Wolves. But that was their golden time for City, the late 60s and into the early 70s. That's when they were winning trophy after trophy. But of course, everything changed in the 80s. That's when they started their luck. They started to go downhill. That decade, they got to Wembley in 81 when they played Tottenham. They 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 lost the cup final to them in a replay, and that after that, well, things started to go wrong for them. Unlike today, the money, the owners they've put money into the club, and look at the success they've had. And of course, today we've heard that Pep Galawada has decided to leave Manchester City after the success, 10 years of success he brought to the club. But when you look back on the golden years and the history of Manchester City, they did have some great players, had some wonderful players. Like I've said, the likes of Mike Summerby, Colin Bell, Francis Lee, and Tony Book. He was um, he was a fullback and he was their captain. They had such great players then. It's a pity City couldn't have gone on and won more trophies in that decade in the 70s. Because, like I've said, they had the players to do it, but they never seemed to manage to win anything else after that. I mean, Francis Lee, well, he went to Derby County and they even signed Dennis Law. And of course, we all remember Dennis Law, cheeky heel, don't we? When he relegated his old club, Manchester United, was in the 73-74 season. And towards the back end of the 70s, that's when the players they had, the likes of Mike Summerby and Colin Bell, Francis Lee. Well, Francis Lee was playing for Derby at the time, but Mike Summerby and Colin Bell, they were coming to the end of their playing careers and they retired. And of course, their old ground was Main Road, and it was a proper old First Division ground. But those glory days of of the past were certainly glorious for Manchester City. And of course, like I've said, they got owners who money into the club, and but they can buy any player they want. Manchester United used to be the same, wasn't they? They used to go out and buy any player. I wonder what'll happen to Erling Haaland now that Golo Wilder is going to leave Manchester City. I wonder if he'll want to leave as well. Whether or not he'll want to stay at Manchester City next season. But I dare say a new coach will come in. I don't think Manchester City will be the same team as they were when Pep was there. I think it'll be an entire. They'll have a different season next season. Well, anyway, that's the end of my video, the history of Manchester City, and I'll see you all again in another one.